1976, you were 21 years old. You were studying at Teflop, University of the North, and then June 16 happens.
And then June 16 happens, and when June 16 happens, we had a solidarity protest on campus at the University of the North.
You were already politically active when you were at school.
Already.
How did that come about?
Well, it happened in high school.
Okay.
When the South African students movement started, which was influenced by the Black Consciousness movement, and we had seen a number of SASO, South African Students Organization, students who were being kicked out of university because of their political affiliations and all that. Our orientation towards what we were like from the we knew about the American Black Power movement. I mean, James Brown was a hit. I'm Black and I'm Proud. The Young, Gifted and Black. I am young. What? We are young, gifted and black. Those were the songs we were singing. And even in our politics, our history, we're reading about and we're starting to question. As early as ages of 16, 15, we're starting to question the history of South Africa, that it doesn't make sense that we are not the indigenous people of South Africa. We came from the north and all that. It doesn't.
Those were the things that they were teaching you at school.
They were teaching us, yeah, Bantu education.
That when Europeans arrived here, they found no one.
They found no one, and we migrated from the north.
So those are the things that they were saying to justify why they behaved the way that they. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Those types of things. You can't. The life of a black person in the townships was always politics. You heard about somebody who was arrested because they didn't have they had an ID book or a passbook, but it wasn't a legitimate one for allowing them to stay in Johannesburg. I remember myself, after I got my ID book and I had to go to our local municipality office to get a stamp that I'm a student. That allows me, you sort of know, your own, from your own experiences, Everyone upon the attainment of 16, when they have an ID book or a passbook, which they called a passbook, at the time, you had to go get a stamp that you're still a student and you're allowed to be in Johannesburg, even though you were born.
Even though you were born and raised in Joburg.
Yes.
But okay, so everyone experienced that. If you were a black person growing up in the country at that time, that was your daily bread.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go one step further and engage in activism? I can't imagine that your parents encouraged you to do that.
No,
I can't imagine that
they were against it.
I can't imagine that your generation was encouraged to do that.
I became the first secretary of SASM at Morris Isaac School, South African Students Movement. I think I was in either Form 3 or Form 4, and we went around raising funds from local businessmen, doctors and all that. And I remember, some people would be telling us, don't go to that one, because you don't want them to know of what you are doing politically, because they are not to be trusted.
And your interest in politics carried on after high school?
Even after high school.
To university.
To university.
17th of June, is your birthday.
Yeah.
June 16, 1976, you were planning your 21st birthday party.
Yeah.
At Teflop.
Yeah.
And then the riots happened and the country was exploded.
Yeah.
What happened? What was that like?
It was like as I was saying, we were June 16 happened on a Wednesday. So, all of us were listening to the state of emergency. We're listening to how people had died. Some of us were phoning our parents at work. We didn't have a phone, asking, trying to get our parents at work to find out what's happening at home. And it was scary hearing about Morris Isaacson, because my younger brother was there. And they were saying even little kids died, like the kids who would follow the crowd that was marching. Little kids who were, because kids came out of schools, they boycotted classes and followed this group, you know, that was going to protest. They were going to meet somewhere in Orlando West where Hector Peterson was killed. Well, Hector Peterson was killed there, but I don't know where they were headed. Or they were going to I think they were going to New Canada, where the Department of Education was, because apparently they wanted kids to learn everything in Afrikaans, you know. And Afrikaans has always been looked upon. Yes, we did Afrikaans as a language, but Afrikaans was always looked at as the language of the oppressor. I couldn't imagine myself doing everything that I had done in high school or primary school in Afrikaans.
Was that policy only going to be applicable to kids in high school and primary school, or was it also going to extend to you even at tertiary?
Maybe at tertiary eventually, but they were starting with the younger kids in primary school. And then we heard about the killings of June 1976. On the 16th of June, the killings happened. There was a state of emergency. We were listening in on the radios at university. And the following day, we had a meeting on campus, you know, like to have a solidarity with the people with the Soweto kids and other universities. On that day when we had a meeting, we heard that a lot of kids were killed at Ngoye University by the Zululand University, which was in Ngoye, by the administration there. And at that time, you know, there were other riots and protests springing up from other universities. And we also heard that even internationally we were getting messages about our own protest support from international, like in the US and UK, we're getting support about our march and all that. And then on the 17th, when we held, on the 17th, during our march, you know, that's when we also lost some of the students. The cops came and they shot and killed some of the students, and some were arrested. I don't know how I got home, you know, because Limpopo was like the only way we could go there from Johannesburg would be by train, but most of us got on the train.
I remember you telling us a story about a letter that the police intercepted and you were called into question.
Yes.
And the cops told you that South Africa will be,
He said in Afrikaans, I can say, I had said that Jimmy Kruger and his people, I was telling a boyfriend who had skipped the country, my fiancé who had skipped the country and was outside in the US, and I was saying Jimmy Kruger and his henchmen and his hoodlums, you know, now are running scared, you know, and now they're starting to do this. I was always like, I was naive and, you know, like writing letters and openly, and the letters were not getting to him. And I was called to Protea police station, and they had all my letters, and they were reading, underlined. They were reading, you know, all these things. And there was one thing that really amused me, you know, when that thing that I had written about Jimmy Kruger and his hoodlums or henchmen, whatever, running scared.
And the cop said what?
He said, and then I said, hey, it means that I had said it in the letter, it means that our freedom is not far away, you know. And the cop said, he said to me, you know, these burly, you could see there were rugby players, cops, you know, and it's just to intimidate you. He said,
you'll stand on your ass before
South Africa. Black people are not going to govern this country.